a top 5 pick in the upcoming NBA draft?
Hell no. Hell no. I'm going to say it loud, and I'm going to say it. Listen, I'm not rooting against the kid. The kid is electrifying. He's got the skills. Jay, he's a walking bucket. You see, it's not, ignore his stats, even though yesterday wasn't great, 5 of 15 from the field. But the point is this, he's automatic 20 points. So imagine what he'd be on the NBA level. But first of all, availability was the first issue. We talked about this. You know, him missing 11 games this year, flu and cramps. I don't know what that, I ain't never heard. I ain't gonna lie to you. I ain't hear about that before. Flu and cramps, Jay. And we usually with the fellas, when you're on the basketball court, they call it a hamstring. With him, they specified cramps, okay? That is not something we're accustomed to hearing, keeping a dude from playing basketball. It just isn't, all right? So that's number one. Number two, outside of the availability, there have been times when he's been on the court, like Jay Williams just pointed out. Jay Williams is sitting there giving Darling props from St. John's, giving Rick Pitino props. I'm giving this cat Bryce props. We're seeing all of this, Rice Hopkins props, right? We're seeing all of this. And Jay instinctually like, what is Darryn Peterson doing on the left side of the court right there? In the last, we find ourselves on too many occasions asking these kind of questions about him. He's either unavailable, literally, or figuratively speaking, on the court in key moments, he doesn't appear to be available. And that is what is alarming. When you're transitioning from 30, 35 games on the collegiate level to being paid to have an obligation to show up 82 games a year, even though in this day and age we know that's not true, but 65 plus games. How about that, right? 60 plus games. Plus the playoffs. We're relying on you. And I'm saying respectfully, that's what he has to overcome. There's nothing about his skill set that I have an issue with. I think the brother is worth all the hype. He's that and a bag of chips. The brother's special. No doubt. He is not a scrub, all right? And I don't know him personally, never met him, never talked to him. All I can go by is what I see and what I hear the experts covering the sport.
Or Bill Self.
Highlighting. They're like, yo, this is what it is. And you can't get around that. Jay Williams, it's a big thing. When Jay Williams is on remote right now and he is dissecting what is happening in the game, and in the midst of his soliloquy, he says, what is Darryn Peterson doing right there? That is consistently what we find ourselves doing when it comes to him. That cannot be right there. What are you doing? It cannot be. And maybe he had his back turned and all of that. I get it. Because they could have kicked it out to the 3 and maybe you're guarding against that. I'm just saying, every single game, we find ourselves asking, what is he doing? That is not an investment that you can trust with the number 1 overall pick in the NBA draft.
And, Jay, to kick it to you here, like Seth Greenberg was on this show last week, kind of said the same thing about Darryn Peterson. Was like they're watching him in person in the Big 12 tournament.
And I apologize to you both. I was answering the question about him being the top overall pick, not necessarily a top 5. So I apologize for that, Jay. Okay. I'm not saying top 5.
Okay.
You can't pass up on him on top 5. He just wouldn't be number 1 overall for me.
Okay. Go ahead, Jay.
Thank you for the clarification, because I was about to lose my mind.
Right.
I was going to say, because the question on the screen is, should he be a top 5 pick? So that's fair. I appreciate the clarification.
Yeah.
If we're having a number 1 overall pick conversation, I'm going to take A.J. DeBonsa. I'm going to take him. I'm starting to believe that I may take Darius Acuff. Now, I think A.J. is a better talent because of his size and his frame. Caleb Wilson's moving up the charts. Boozer's always going to be in that conversation. I love the positional size of Kingston Flemings. I think I'm going to say this about Darryn Peterson. I've never questioned his talent. I do believe, though, that he does love basketball. I think there's a part of me that after doing more research, Stephen A., over the last month or so, I think it's hard for young players, and I'm not making excuses for him, but I think it's hard for young players at times to do what they want to do. And when you listen to a lot of people, sometimes it may not steer you down the right path. We all know how we act when we're younger, right? As opposed to when we're grown men and we can make decisions for ourselves. So I do see, when I talk to NBA scouts, his positional size as a 2, the way he can catch and shoot, work seamlessly within an offense. He's not really playing with dudes that can actually create shots for themselves. I see him being a special talent, but as a number 1 overall pick, I think there are 2 or 3 other players that I'm looking at now and considerably thinking better of long term as it relates to being a number 1 pick than I am about Darryn Peterson. That's just how I feel about it.
Can't pass up on him as a top 5. He's too electrifying.
No.
You got to go with him as a top 5 pick. I'm not insane, but the number 1 overall pick, I'm with Jay. It's A.J. DeBonza.
Really quick, because we do have to bump because we have a shorter show today. Did what he did in the tournament change your opinion at all? Or
No.
does it stay the same? He
No.
could have just not played in the NCAA tournament. We would have felt the same way.
There wasn't enough.
Jay,
There wasn't enough.
What do you think? Did it change anything?
Shay, I'll say one last thing, and I get it. He's a Hall of Fame coach. I'm not sure the system that Kansas plays is the best system for Darryn Peterson to play in. He don't got the ball in his hands all day like Darius Acuff. That's all I'll say.
Overly attractive as other people thinking. Like, who knows? I mean, like, here's what I think's happening at North Carolina. They're telling Hubert Davis that he's got to change his staff. Like, I don't think they want to fire Hubert Davis. That's me. Hubert Davis, obviously, his jersey's hanging in the rafters. But I think they're going to put him in a situation where he's going to say, no, that's not what I'm all about. So they come to him and say, you know what, Hubert, all right, you've got to make changes in your staff. The staff right now isn't conducive to us competing at the very highest level in terms of recruiting, player acquisition, and everything else that goes around it. We've got to modernize our organization. My gut feeling is Hubert says, no, I'm not doing that. That's not what I'm all about. These are my guys. All right. You know, I have a staff of all Carolina guys. All right. The Carolina family. I can't do that to one of my brothers. So he's going to have to step down. I mean, what are some of the names? Look, is Danny Hurley going to come to North Carolina? Would that be like culture shock for everyone at North Carolina? With Todd Golden, with everything that his antics, with Nate Oates, maybe, but does Nate Oates maybe want to go to the NBA? They've got to have a total reboot in terms of style of play and someone who's going to bring incredible energy to that building. They don't have a former player. Now, there's a rumor going around, Kenny Smith, you know, he's been missing from the set on TNT. I can't imagine him going for another former Carolina guy that had limited or no head coaching experience. But I think they're going to have to try to get someone that can inject a little enthusiasm and also have a connection to the business of college basketball. The business of college basketball is very different than it was 5 years ago, 4 years ago. And you've got to modernize your approach of player acquisition, retention, and everything that surrounds the program. So I think they're going to go with a younger guy, a successful guy. But, I mean, you start going like who's available. If you start listening to the most talented young coach, Ryan Odom's not going here. He did a great job in Virginia. He's at a comfortable place where who's the next generation? You start going through those guys. You know, if I'm Carolina, I say, Danny Hurley, what do you need? And I say, you know what? We're going absolutely outside the box. From a coach that never said a swear word to a coach that says hello and drops a blank bomb. But a guy that is totally passionate about what he's doing. You know, I go to Nate Oates, or I go to Todd Golden, or I think the next generation of young, great coaches, which we have a lot of guys, you got to have someone who can go toe-to-toe with John Shire in recruiting, and you have to have someone who can go toe-to-toe with John Shire and the North Carolina Duke rivalry that's going to compete in recruiting and in terms of playing style and toughness and credibility, I guess.
Coach, I want to make sure I just understand something you said, though. You said the North Carolina job is not as attractive as we would think?
Yeah, well, here's what I'm saying. All right, do you think that Dan Hurley will leave to go to North Carolina?
No.
All right, do you think Nate Oates would leave to go to North Carolina?
Maybe.
Do you think Todd Golden's going to leave Florida to go to North Carolina?
I think that's more of a less maybe, but I'm not writing it off like I would Hurley.
Yeah, I just think that, like, if you have a program, you're always going to be compared to the firm. That's what I call North Carolina, the firm. I mean, you know, back in the day, it's just the most buttoned down thing you've ever seen. They're so tied into the Carolina family. It would be such a culture shock to someone to go in and say, we're changing everything. Because that's what you have to do in a lot of ways. You've got to go in and change everything about the program and inject an energy, enthusiasm, a mindset, a branding. You almost got to rebrand Carolina basketball into the current of college athletics and college basketball. And I just don't know if some of these really young, talented coaches. Is Sean Miller going to leave Texas? Great coach. I think he's found a kind of a home. I mean, like, he would have been one that I would say, Sean Miller. Yeah, he's got a shot. But I think the risk and reward. Now, the only outside the box that he didn't have a good year this year, but a guy like Shaka Smart. But he's not a home run in terms of, is he going to make that alumni base excited coming off the season he's had and saying he's not going into the portal?
No.
That's not going to work either. It's not that easy. Like, there's not just guys that can jump out you. Do they go into the NBA like BYU did? But you go into the NBA, you got to basically, that guy has to hire a staff that is college-centric, because NBA guys, one thing when they make that transition, they have no understanding that the day-to-day grind of college basketball. They don't have an understanding of, you're only as good as your last recruiting class. They don't understand that it's 30 games. It's not 82 games. And you get punched in the face too many times early, getting your team back, where you can see in the NBA, well, we'll look at my next 10 games. If we can go 6-4, we're going to be in pretty good shape. You go 6-4 at Carolina, you're looking at the schedule and maybe not playing well, and the sky is falling, or the roof. But is the ceiling is the roof, or the roof is the ceiling? I forget what did Jordan say?
Ceiling is the roof.
Yeah, ceiling is the roof. Yeah, there we go.
Either way, it's fallen based on what you're saying.
I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be really interesting. Now, if you're letting them go, you better know who you can get. Like, they got a new AD. This is the biggest hire that right out of the boot. Whether it's tear down the D-Dome and build a new Dean Smith Center, and who's your next basketball coach going to be? That's big right there now.
Wow.
That's good shoes to walk into. So
you certainly took an interesting take on this, which is awesome for us, and we appreciate the information. Obviously, we will do more on